Dorothy Palmer Wilson. I am the oldest granddaughter of William and Ida Jones Griffin. The history as we know of William Griffin goes back to 1886. All of the initial Griffins, as we know and has been confirmed, were sharecroppers and farmers. They lived in an area called Center Place that's down at the end of Boney Road as we know it now. And they moved from that era to a little small house where now the Oakhurst community is. They moved there and stayed for a few years until they were able to purchase their own land and home on Boney Road, where we call the homestead or the home house now. He purchased 80 acres of land, so he had farmland for farming for his family, and also to bring in other people who didn't have access to personal housing. After he purchased his land, he started selling small bits to people who didn't have resources probably as well as him. He sold his first acre of land for $150. We were in a segregated community because Bethel School was the school for blacks at that time. By being segregated, we had to bring teachers out of Columbia, the Columbia area, to come to Blythewood and teach school at Bethel. Well, they didn't have the resources, they didn't have the cars to come into our schools and teach, so my grandfather, along with other people in the communities, provided housing for them during the week so they can come and teach at our schools, and they would go home on the weekend. He saved his money to help buy land and a building for a church, which was still now our home church, Macedonia Baptist Church, which his family is still very prevalent there. But he worked in a sawmill to maintain his family for many years. And after he left the sawmill, he went to Bethel School to work as a janitor. And that's where he finished up his years before retirement.
I'm Constalina Kelly Cunningham, and I've lived in the Blythewood area all my life. My great-great-grandfather, which I understand was white, and his wife was a Cherokee Indian, and she lived on the reservation, and he married her, and then it was a law passed that she could no longer be outside the area. She had to go back into the reservation, so he hid her in the house until she died. And to that union, there were 6 children born, and they lived right over there off Longhorn Road, right over there in Blythewood area. My grandmother, which was named Estelle Kelly, she married Wade Kelly. They had a home on Wade Kelly Road, which is named Wade Kelly Road after my granddaddy. And my grandmother, she taught us to always help someone, and she would go around when Martin Luther King to the places that he was meeting that she had away, she would go. Martin Luther King came to Round Top Baptist Church, and I can remember the excitement that people were talking about what would be said and how they were so glad that he was in the area and how it was time to get ready to go, how excited my parents were to get a chance to go see and hear him in person. When they got back, they were talking about how exciting, and they gave them the courage to stand up and treat others right and with dignity and pride, and how much better they felt about themselves when they got back from the meeting. They started talking more about we all going to school as one, that we could all go to school, that the white children and the black children could go to school together, and that they would have white teachers as well as black teachers teaching us how we should all treat each other.
My name is Frances McDonald Davis. I was born 1934 in Richland County. My parents moved to Blythewood in 1940 so I could go to school along with my sisters. Bethel High School was the only black school in District 2. Before the school was built, we had several church-related schools. They were Flat Branch, Round Top, Mount Zion, Little Zion, Piney Grove. All those small churches started commuting to Blythewood. And that's because that was the only black high school we had in District 2. Miss Hanbury was the first black teacher that worked in District 2. Our school was not accredited school, and she worked to see that Bethel High School became accredited school, and later the elementary school became accredited school. Miss Hanbury had served there for over 30 years, and that's why it's called Bethel Hanbury School.
My name is Ruby Bryce. I live in Blythewood, South Carolina, and I was born here in 1952. Our family has been here for since the late 1800s on both paternal and maternal sides. My paternal family lived in Blythewood in the late 1800s. My maternal family moved to Blythewood for the education and the school systems, and they came in the early 1900s. Bethel High School was a gathering place for much more than the town of Blythewood and the Blythewood community, because being the only black school in the district, we had students that came from as far away as Elgin, Pontiac, State Park, and as far away as Fort Jackson, because the schools were segregated. The students from the military base, the black students from the military base they were not allowed to attend Dentsville High School, so they came to Bethel High School. So it was a nexus to the overall community more than the town of Blythewood. Baseball was the recreation in Blythewood at the time for black families. And it was a nexus to the overall community because we played teams from Belfield in the Fairfield County area, teams from Killian, teams from across the state. My grandfather, David Hagler, worked on the Southern Railway for 44 years. He was working as a track layer. They were entrepreneurs. They had a store where the Blythewood town sign is coming off the interstate was where his home and little convenience store was. Both were torn down with the I-77 entranceway exit to Blythewood at exit 27. And where the sign of Town of Blythewood sign is where they initially lived.
I'm Naomi Robertson Wheaton. I'm 95 years old.
My name is Mattie Lois Robertson Squirewell. We moved to Blythewood in 1937. And we moved what's now Boney Road, but I don't know if it had a name then. And it was right across from Bethel School, because we could wait until Miss Hanbury rang the bell before we run off the porch and come to school.
My dad, he was a farmer. He really was a farmer just about all his life. And then he was a great Sunday school teacher, because on Friday evening and Saturday evenings he always had a group of people that he taught the Sunday school lesson for that Sunday, that they would be able to teach it in their churches.
He was always active in stuff, so he was one of the people that was going around asking people when the time came for them to register and vote. So some of the people in Blythewood, they didn't want that to happen because it was still segregation and whatever. But my dad didn't stop that. He still was trying to get people to register to vote. Along in that time, it was one Friday night, somebody burned our barn down, burned up our horse and our mule. But my dad, being the person he was, he didn't give up. And that Monday evening, when he got back home, he had a horse that he had purchased that day. So he would always teach us that you put your trust in God and things, will be all right for you. But he continued still to get people to register and vote.
Blythewood is just almost like day and night, change is dark and then it's light. And so in our lifetime coming up young to where we at now, so many changes that have been made until Blythewood really not the same.
Blythewood has grown and it's still growing. And so far, we have had 2 blacks on the town council, and I've seen the time that wouldn't have been, because when I was at home here, I worked what you all call the Hoffman house next door over there. I worked at that house for a family, and I babysit, and on the weekend I would clean up. And I could go on the front porch to sweep it off, but when I came to work, I had to come in the back door. So now you can go in any door you want to.